So you're saying that the killing of Ismail Haniyeh was a war crime?
The negotiator?
Yeah.
How are you meant to negotiate if you kill the negotiator?
Yeah,
Yes.
I've heard this talking point. Yeah.
That I just don't understand.
The ICC, International Criminal Court, handed out 5 arrest warrants.
Yep.
One for Netanyahu, one for Gallant, one for Ismail Haniyeh, one for Sinwar, and one for Mashal Khalid.
There was an arrest warrant for Netanyahu.
Yes, there is. When 100% of the population in its own area is displaced. 100%. Hamas baked one of the Israeli hostages a birthday cake. Israeli captives rape Palestinian hostages. This is the difference.
So you said if you could demonstrate to you that there is a systematic approach.
I'm going to keep going,
to,
please, because I have a couple more examples.
To wiping out the
Civilian
Palestinians,
population.
Right? You said you would be willing to agree that this is a what do you call it?
Act of genocide.
Act of genocide. Is that swaying you more towards that direction now, or are you still?
If the target is Hamas and trying to get rid of Hamas, interestingly enough, you were talking about. There's actually a story in 2002 where all of the Hamas leaders were actually in a building. Have you heard this story? 2002, we had Ismail Haniyeh, Mohammed Daif, Mashal Khalid, Rantizi Yassin, some big name, all these big name terrorists. All of them have been killed now, apart from Mashal Khalid. They're all sitting in a building. And Israel was going to drop a 1-ton bomb on them. But Israel was scared if they drop a 1-ton bomb on this building, it's a 2-story building, if they're going to drop a 1-ton bomb on this building, it could be considered a war crime. So instead of Israel using a 1-ton bomb, they used a 1/4-ton bomb. The 1/4-ton bomb was dropped. It took out the top floor of the building. The meeting that they had was on the bottom floor of the building, and all these big name terrorists, and it was a once-off meeting of all these big name terrorists. They could have wiped them all out then, but it's taken years and years and years to get Rantizi and Yassin, you know, the man in the wheelchair,
but also
and all of these people. So Israel was going to use a 1-ton bomb, but they didn't want to use a 1-ton bomb because they didn't want to commit a war crime, and they used a 1/4-ton bomb, and all of the people's lives were spared. None of the terrorists were killed. The bomb took out the top floor, not the bottom floor.
Yep.
Well, so again, so that's an act of not genocide. That's an act of trying to take into consideration.
But before and after that, was Israel not funding Hamas? Benjamin Netanyahu has gone in multiple reports saying he is allowing the funds to go to Hamas. Pre this and post this. So if they're terrorists, why would you fund them?
I've got a story. I remember many years ago hearing that Israel funded Hamas, and I actually...
They have funded it all the way until 2023.
For 50 years.
In Qatar, they sat in September, and he was asked if they should cut off the funding to Hamas. They said no. If they were terrorists, why are you funding them? You're the one that allows the funds to go in.
To strengthen...
Where are they getting the funds from?
Qatar.
From Qatar, international donations, everything. But Israel controls their funds.
And interestingly enough...
banking system.
Yep.
Yeah, and interestingly enough...
And they allowed all of it in.
Yeah.
Post considering them terrorists.
Why?
Okay, so because, as Netanyahu said, there was a famous meeting, I think it was in 2019, when Benjamin Netanyahu said, we must treat, if we don't want there to be a 2-state solution, we must treat Hamas, the people who don't want a 2-state solution, as an asset, and we must treat the Palestinian, the PA, who does support a 2-state solution, as a liability. So it's about strengthening the people who...
That they can claim terrorists later on and attack and do collective punishment on.
Yes. Now, the thing is...
collective punishment does exist, which is a war crime and a genocidal war crime.
Anyway, I remember...
What do you have to say about that, what he just said?
Collective punishment is a war crime, a genocidal war crime.
Collective punishment is a war
Article
crime.
33 of the Fourth Geneva Convention.
Collective punishment is a war crime. I remember hearing some people, Adar Weinreb, saying that like Israel cutting off all the... initially when the war started, they cut off all the water and electricity and food, and they...
The blockade and occupation on Gaza goes before October 7th. That is a war crime. Because that's collective punishment. You're punishing the public for the actions of some. Considering 50% of the population are children, they were not alive when Hamas got voted in. That's another thing that Israelis love to say is Palestinians voted Hamas in. If we know that 50% of the population today, or in October 2023, before this all started, was 2.2 million. If 50% is population, that takes them out for voting anyway, right?
Yeah.
And the rest that leaves, they would have to be voting age when Hamas got into power in 2006, 2007, which takes away another 30% of the population. So that leaves 20% of the population alive today. From that, we know Hamas won the election on 40% of the votes, which leaves 8% of the population alive today that voted for Hamas. That's collective punishment on 100% of the population that it displays for 8% of the population that voted someone in.
What can he say right now for you to sway your mind towards saying, no, it's
justify
not
any of the
not a
civilian
genocide.
deaths.
It's not a genocide.
Justify civilian deaths.
Justify.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
the scale of civilian deaths.
In World War II was a morally justified war. World War II, I believe my statistics are correct. World War II, 2 million German civilians were killed in World War II.
They are war crimes. Bombing of Dresden is a war crime.
Yes,
just
of course
because one side did it and they won the war and they write the history books doesn't take away the fact that civilians were killed and it's a war crime.
In vast majority of the wars that have ever been fought, there have always been civilian deaths.
Not at the rate that we've seen in Gaza. Not the amount of journalists that have been killed, not the amount of UN aid workers that have been killed.
Some of the journalists and some of the UN aid workers, apparently, according to Israeli
But they
media,
can't
have been.
justify this.
Okay,
But we can justify
some
the
of the
journalists who reports.
Some of the journalists
And the UN aid
and
workers.
some of the UN workers and UNRWA workers have been Hamas members. And
On the political side, yes, they have. They have two sides, combatant and political. Just how when Israel defends itself by saying civilians can't be targets, civilians on that side can't be targeted. When you're in part of the political wing, you're not a combatant. You have nothing to do with the combatant side.
So you're saying that the killing of Ismail Haniyeh was a war crime?
The negotiator.
Yeah.
How are you meant to negotiate if you kill the negotiator?
Yeah,
yes.
I've heard this talking point. Yeah.
That I just don't understand. That doesn't make sense to me.
Who killed the negotiator?
Israel, sir.
Can you verify that?
Yes, this was verified. So
Israel came out and claimed it.
Why did they kill him?
In Iran,
Because he's a negotiator for Hamas, and they don't want negotiations.
What was their definition of?
He's Hamas.
That's it.
Yes.
He's a Hamas leader.
He's a Hamas, powerful Hamas leader.
Ismail Haniyeh.
But
No. Okay, the ICC, International Criminal Court, handed out 5 arrest warrants.
Yep.
One for Netanyahu, one for Gallant,
Yep.
one for Ismail Haniyeh, one for Sinwar, and one for Mashal Khalid.
There was an arrest warrant for Netanyahu.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
By who?
ICJ.
No, ICC.
Okay.
International Criminal Court.
That's
So
what
the
I-
Why
ICC
hasn't he been
the one
arrested?
that-
Why hasn't he been arrested?
What? So that he's only been.
He doesn't go to the
Israel.
countries that would arrest him.
Yes.
What countries would arrest him?
Any of the ones that don't agree with the charter, like the 2 countries that veto all of the UN resolutions. Australia's unfortunately one of them. So America.
If Netanyahu was to come
I
here,
don't think Australia will arrest him. No.
No, but legally they have the right to.
Yes, they're actually objected to for crimes of plausible genocide.
Really?
Yes.
Is what he's saying legitimate from your end?
So when it comes to the ICC handed out arrest warrants from Netanyahu, Gallant, Ismail Haniyeh, so he actually is a war criminal. Even though he's political, he is a war criminal. Mohammed Def also is a war criminal.
Who?
Mohammed Def. And
What a name.
Deef, I think it's pronounced Mohammed Def.
It's Crusader,
Mohammed Def, they try to assassinate him like 8 times, and on the eighth time or 7 times, and on the 8th time they've managed to kill him.
Cat with 9 lives.
Yes, and then they actually work. Did you hear?
I didn't know this. No.
His name was the cat with. His nickname was like the cat with 9 lives, or like also the guest, because he was always.
Imagine the
people's houses.
PTSD you'd have, like after surviving the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th.
Yeah, he lost an eye. He lost his ability to walk. He was a very big commander, and he turned Hamas from a ragtag group of just terrorists to a full-on military brigade.
Along with the funding of Israel. You have
Yes,
to understand that.
yeah.
That was
as
the
I
main
said,
reason they got to power.
a long time ago, I used to actually believe that these claims that Israel funded Hamas was an anti-Jewish lie.
Oh, I was not surprised until I did my research as well. I was very skeptical.
Here's the thing. This is my confirmation bias. I thought it was an anti-Jewish lie. It turns out it's true. And the thing is, since 1973, before Hamas became a terrorist organization in 1987, it was a charity in 1973. It began as a charity, and Israel was funding this charity directly funding this charity in the 70s, because at the time Hamas and Fatah were at war with each other, and the big enemy of Israel was Fatah, and Israel thought, oh, if we can get the Palestinians, the secularists, Fatah, and these religious people to fight each other, divide and conquer, it takes the heat off us, we can get them to fight each other. And so this whole strategy of funding Hamas actually has been going for 50 years.
Yeah,
so,
but Hamas came out of occupation.
We've got 10 minutes
now. Hamas wasn't born when there was no occupation.
We've got 10 minutes before we close. I wanna just put a question out there just to get your both perspectives. Yep. What's the solution?
I think, as much as I think a two-state solution, everyone should have their own land that they feel safe and comfortable with.
Yes, I also agree. I think this is a positive thing. I am vehemently in support of a two-state solution. It means that the Jewish right to self-determination can be maintained and the Palestinian right to self-determination can be realized. If the self-determinations of both groups can be maintained and realized, it's a win-win. Now, unfortunately, the Palestinians are going to have to accept that they're not going to go back to 1948. They're not going to get most of their lands back, but they can get a viable state going for themselves in Gaza, West Bank, and East
Jerusalem. Even with Hamas, they changed their charter in 2017 to agree with the 67 state solutions, the borders. Yeah, so they have agreed to it now.
No, they've agreed. They agreed. Okay, we'll.
In their charter, they've officially changed it.
Yeah, yes, they did in 2017. They officially, we temporarily recognize that we recognize the 67 borders, and we recognize that there'll be the Gaza and the West Bank and East Jerusalem will be a temporary state for Palestine. They never ever recognized Israel's right to exist. And again, this is where
they did. They took it out of their August 18, 1988
charter. Did it actually
because
say
they changed the charter to focus more on the political battle against Israel over occupied territories, and emphasizes that its conflict is not with Jews due to the religion, but with the illegal occupations and those who oppress Palestinians.
I don't think that they...
You can read the charter.
They don't recognize Israel's right to exist, and they've never done that.
They didn't initially because it stated that they wanted to destroy Israel, but they changed their language in 2017.
Wait, when you said they initially did it, is there registered?
They were already occupied.
Is there registered logs that showcase when?
If you look at the charter,
if you look at their charter, the original charter was filled
the
with
1988 one.
Yeah, the 1988 one was filled with anti-Jewish references to the Mein Kampf and the Learned Elders of Protocols of Zion. I'm sorry, the original charter was full of Jew hatred.
When Israel supported it the most, though. Israel wanted it to come into power when the charter stated that.
What's the issue then? I'm not getting the problem then.
There's the people that are occupied that have no right to self-determination.
So that's what Israel...
2 million people cannot leave where they are.
Yes,
cannot have access to clean water, clean energy, clean food.
Yes, but Palestine has been occupied since 1947. For many Palestinians, it's not about 1967. It's about 1947.
It's about the occupation.
Yeah, it's the occupation of all the land.
And also, you have to understand, the ones that were alive then, most of them have passed away. We're talking about a younger generation that agree with the two-state solution.
Well, the last I heard that only 20% of Israelis and Palestinians agree to a two-state solution. The vast majority of both populations don't support it.
After the war of October 7th, which once again divided both sides extremely because of the atrocities that have been committed.
All right, well, I think to sum it up, are you willing to acknowledge his point, saying that what's happening to Palestine is genocide? Is there a fraction or a percentage that you would be willing to agree on, or are you still confident on your position and your stance?
Okay, if you're going to say that war crimes have been committed, I will acknowledge that. I think there was reading a report that there's over 100 or 300 investigations the IDF is investigating that of specific war crimes, and this is something that Israel does. They do research into the...
How many IDF have been charged with war crimes in the past? 0.
No, there have been some.
Yes, there have been military.
No, not zero. Sorry, not zero. In 2014, there was a Black Friday where 2 Israeli soldiers were taken captive, and then the Hannibal Directive was used.
Yep.
It was called Black Friday, and for a time span of 20 to 30 minutes, the Israeli Defense Force started indiscriminately bombing certain areas of the Gaza Strip where they felt the captives were, and I think 150 Palestinians were killed, or something like that. And there's a whole, and these there's a whole big, and these soldiers and generals were actually prosecuted and charged. And there's the Israeli right wing was very upset with this. How can you throw our soldiers in jail who are trying to defend Israel? It's all Hamas's fault. It's not their fault. But they actually were tried and convicted and thrown in jail.
Okay.
So yes, they do.
So how many were tried and convicted?
Again, when it comes to the numbers, I have to go through the internet.
I think it's extremely disproportionate. But the fact that we see that they haven't investigating Hind's murder, which is on satellite imagery, shows that they don't investigate these crimes, and if they do it, they don't take them seriously.
So nothing he can say will convince you that it's
not a genocide? No. I think just what we have seen,
you're not
when 100% of the population in its own area is displaced, 100%, 60% of all infrastructure is destroyed.
That's genocide. And you can verify this is not an emotional position.
No, this is not. I have no personal bias towards this. I looked at it from the start and to the finish from a neutral point of view.
You're not even from that region.
No, I'm not from the Middle East.
But you're also saying that there's no evidence that Israeli women were raped.
On October 7th?
Yeah.
Yes, I am saying there was no evidence from the UN reports, which they investigated.
And what about
5,000 videos and
what about
images.
Israeli hostages?
They're not being raped. We can clarify this in Israeli hostages interviews. Hamas baked one of the Israeli hostages a birthday cake. Israeli captives rape Palestinian hostages. This is the difference.
Was that after the birthday cake?
Probably. They're like, how dare you? Where's my birthday cake?
I think I actually heard that story about the birthday cake.
Yeah, but like, if you look at the interviews of the Israeli hostages, including the ones that were released on the ceasefire, they were very happy.
There's testimonies of Hamas
terrorists. There's one testimony which she took back.
There's testimonies of Hamas terrorists acknowledging that we were raping Israeli women on October 7th.
Where?
All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this to the audience. Guys and girls, like and subscribe, and do drop a comment on what you guys think regarding each individual's points of view and your points of view. Can you contest them? Can you battle them? And maybe we could have a part 2 and bring these points up again. So thank you very much for tuning in, and peace.